Robert Plank Show, episode 297, LinkedIn ads. Target professionals and get your message to specific targets with AJ Wilcox. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. Our guest today is AJ Wilcox, and AJ is a LinkedIn ads pro, and he founded B2Linked.com, which is a LinkedIn ads specific agency. And they're newly minted LinkedIn official partners who manage among the world's most sophisticated accounts worldwide. So Mr. AJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Robert.
So LinkedIn and LinkedIn ads, is this your specialty?
It sure is. Yeah, I've been doing digital marketing for about the last 10 years and kind of stumbled onto LinkedIn ads as a platform about 5 years ago, had stellar success with it, and decided to break off and start my own agency around it.
Awesome. So I'm super excited to hear about sort of the ins and outs of LinkedIn ads and stuff like that, because I think I might have seen LinkedIn ads like years and years ago, and I got kind of discouraged because I think like they required you to bid something like a minimum of like $2 a click, and so I didn't pay, or I didn't mess with it too much. But then, every time I've sort of thought about it or looked back at it, I thought, whoa, like for those businesses where this is, if you can profit on that, that's super awesome, because I imagine you can target like super specific across like some of these users. Is that right?
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, when I first found out it was a $2 minimum for those text ads back in the day, I was like, man, who's willing to pay $2? And now I see the vast majority of these bigger B2B companies who are willing to pay like 6 to 12, and I'm like, oh yeah, those were the days.
Geez, so LinkedIn ads. So it seems like it's definitely like definitely a way different animal than something like Facebook or Google. And so, I mean, what sorts of businesses are LinkedIn ads good for?
Yeah, I think the best businesses for it are going to be B2B companies who have a specific type of target in mind. Like they're not just trying to show to every business person. And here's the kicker, their deal size or their lifetime value probably needs to be above somewhere around 15K. And so if you're not making 15K from a deal, LinkedIn's initial cost per click is probably going to be too expensive, and you should probably stick to Facebook ads.
Awesome. And so, I mean, what sort of businesses are these where they're doing 15K on just like one transaction here?
Yeah, lots of enterprise companies. I mean, like Enterprise Medical, where they sell one machine and it's a $3 million purchase, or software providers who, let's say it's a SaaS software, for instance, that they have 15 seats in the organization. Something like a Salesforce is great, because they're going to not only make money every month, but over time that's going to add up as they resubscribe, and definitely equals out to over 15K.
Awesome. So, do you have like just off the top of your head like a case study or some sort of client you've had where they came to you, they said, we're the right fit for LinkedIn ads. Can you set us up some stuff? Do you have anything like that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I won't share the name because I didn't check with the company before hopping on. But I had a client who they sell HR software. So this is the software that human resources departments will use to do things like onboard employees and track engagement and keep track of payroll and all that kind of thing. And so they came to me and they said, hey, the entire HR departments are going to use this. Things are going really well for us. We think people are going to adopt. And so we ran ads pretty much just like normal campaigns for a little while, probably about a year. And then they came out with a piece of content that they were sharing called the Definitive Guide to Onboarding. And it was that one piece of content that just did so incredibly well that it really launched them into the stratosphere for their LinkedIn ads.
Awesome. And then so, I mean, when you're doing that sort of thing, like this huge piece of software targeting these like huge organizations, I mean, what sort of thought process goes into those ads? And especially because you mentioned like nowadays, I guess there's like $6 clicks, $12 clicks. Like what kind of targeting can you do with LinkedIn, and what's sort of your thought process in putting that together?
Sure. So the thought process around targeting goes a little something like this. So the customer will tell me what their client looks like, and they'll usually be able to say, like in this case, hey, it's HR departments. And we'll say, okay, is it, the lower level folks? Is it managers, directors, VPs, C-level even? And we'll define that. In this case, it was pretty much like, yeah, all HR has a hand in this, whether you're at the low or the top. So let's kind of go after them all. And so that's pretty simple, I think, for most clients, because most potential clients I go to, I say, hey, who are you targeting? Who's the person who's going to be the buyer? And they'll usually have a pretty good business profile, and then I can just take that to LinkedIn and figure it out. And then like the options that LinkedIn gives us to target are so incredible for B2B. There's not only things that you'd expect like job title and company name and company industry, but there's also company size. So you can make sure that you're selling into the right size organizations. You're not getting like way too big of companies who wouldn't ever consider buying your stuff, or way too small of companies who can't afford it. Also things like what department someone works in and what level of seniority they are and skills they have in their profile, even the various groups that they're members of. It goes on and on.
Awesome. And then so you get that so you can target it like super specifically, and then when you make that ad, like I mean, how much space do you have in a LinkedIn ad? And like I mean, can you do like images now, and like what sort of ads did you make for this client?
Yeah, anyone following along who's in front of a computer, you can go right to linkedin.com and just kind of follow along, and I'll point them all out. On the right side of your screen, on the right rail, those ones, they appear probably about 2/3 of the time. Sometimes they're just like a big display unit, but those are called text ads. Those have been around since 2008. And when I show people those for the first time, most of the time they'll say, oh, that's interesting. I never even noticed them there. And we are so banner blind to these ads. But there's one really cool thing about them is that they only show up on desktop. So if you have a landing page experience that doesn't work very well with mobile, this is the ad unit you want to use. And they're usually a little bit less expensive than most, just because they're not very competitive. Not very many people use them. The next is, if you just look down your news feed, the second item will say sponsored underneath it. And that's how you know it's an ad. And the image is quite large. It takes up pretty much the whole space in the feed for that unit. And you can use that for whatever you want. You can send someone to a landing page. You can offer a piece of content there, that kind of thing. And those are probably about 65% of the traffic that you get from that is mobile. So make sure your landing page is mobile happy. And then the third is an ad unit that we just recently got access to. It's called Sponsored InMail, and that will appear right in your inbox inside of LinkedIn. That one's not a pay-per-click like the other ones are. This is a pay-per-recipient. And it runs usually about 65 to 95 cents per send. And the really, really nice thing about this is that there's a frequency cap on it that's really stringent. It means you can only receive, any one LinkedIn member can only receive one of these every 2 months. So if you've gotten one, you don't get to expect one for another 2 months.
Awesome, cool. So it sounds like that helps with that banner blindness, and it prevents us from like racking up a bunch of impressions for like a client that might not lead anywhere. And I'm logged in on LinkedIn also, and I'm seeing that like on the that sidebar thing, I'm seeing like some ad for like Comcast for business for me, and then in that like first ad there's a thing for Sprint, like some sort of like cell phone plan, and then I scroll down and there's some kind of like online university. And so I guess, so just by looking at this, I guess no like marketers really actively targeting whatever I have in LinkedIn, I guess, right?
Yeah, either that or the telco companies and the education ones are just bidding so high on you.
Could be. And I wonder if and I think maybe 6 months or a year ago I upgraded my my internet to like the fastest that it was, like whatever the business package, so I just wanted like faster. So I wonder if upgrading to that package like got me on a list or got my information sold somewhere, so that some of these other ads are targeting me, maybe.
Ooh, I wonder. That could totally be the case.
Awesome. So okay, so there are these there's these sidebar graphic things. There's that middle ad, and then there's the in-mail ad, and then so I mean so when you make these ads, do you make like just one, or do you make a bunch of variations, kind of see how they played out? Like, what do you do after that first ad is set up?
Yeah, sure. So I always launch at one audience. They're called campaigns in LinkedIn. I will always launch it with at least 2 ads, and usually it's 2 at a time. The reason why is because if you have experience with either Google or Facebook, this will seem really familiar. If you launch 3 or 4, what will happen is two of them will end up getting a lot of impressions. One will get a few, and then the other one just won't get any. And so I think that's just a weakness in bidding algorithms in the way that we do digital marketing. But yeah, I know if I launch two at a time, both of them are going to get enough impressions that I should be able to make a call on which one performs best.
Awesome. So that makes a lot of sense. So that way you're not like, split a bunch of ways. You can just say, okay, is A or B sort of the winner there? And so is there any kind of like retargeting or stuff like that in LinkedIn yet?
Yes, there is. So the method that LinkedIn follows is they will come out with something like a new type of targeting, let's say, or a new feature. They'll release it to all of their customers that are on the managed services side, which means that they have a rep, they're paying at least 25K a quarter to get access there. And then once they've kind of played with it and made sure that they don't have any bugs with those folks, then they roll it out to everyone. So right now that is available to all of the managed services customers. So I would not be surprised if we have access to retargeting on LinkedIn in the next quarter, let's say.
Awesome. So exciting stuff ahead there. And so you make these ads and you sort of tweak them over time and so like what kind of things do you do? Like do you make a new ad fresh like every week, or do you go back and like is there any like adjusting of the bid, or like what do you do to keep these ads kind of pulling for you?
Oh, I love this question. So it sounds like you probably have some experience with Facebook, yeah?
A love-hate experience with those ads, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so here's the issue with Facebook ads is people check in so often that there's a lot of ad inventory, and so people will burn out really quickly. LinkedIn's awesome because most people don't check into LinkedIn nearly as often as they do Facebook, and so if you're showing ads, those ads are gonna have a higher lifetime, I'd say. So when I'm running Facebook ads campaigns, I generally have to refresh those ads about every week to 2 weeks. On LinkedIn, you usually don't have to refresh them and change them at all for about like 28 to 33 days is what I've found through my analysis.
Oh, wow.
So initially, my first thing is going to be launch content to audiences with messaging and test and see where the weakness is. It may be that you have no problem getting people to engage with your messaging, so they go to your landing page and then they don't convert. And so then I say, okay, that's a content problem or a landing page problem. Or if you're just having a hard time getting people to come to your landing page to click on your ads, then you know that you have a messaging problem. So I deal with whatever's there, and usually about once to twice a month, I'll try to refresh that ad creative to keep it looking fresh so people aren't getting tired of it.
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense. And that's a cool way of looking at things like, okay, either my problem is they're not clicking or they're clicking and it's not converting, but that way it's like you just choose which problem to solve and you solve it. And also, I mean, I imagine that, and I don't even know how to phrase this, but like, back when like Google Ads were new, like Google AdSense, it was always like it seemed like the ugliest sites got the most clicks, and I wonder if it was just because like that ad was in the sidebar of my site, and it's like people just wanted to get the heck off of the site because like it was so boring, and I sort of like with Facebook ads, I kind of imagine that that Facebook ads, it's hard to get someone to click just because like Facebook is so dang addictive. There's so many like friends to spy on and enemies to spy on even more and stuff like that. And so is that sort of an effect with LinkedIn? Just because like I mean it's not the most interesting site, I guess, right? Like people have blog posts, there's like jobs and resumes, but I imagine that like it might be sort of easier to get someone to click on a banner on LinkedIn to get off that site if that doesn't sound too harsh against LinkedIn.
No, I definitely think there might be some of that effect going on. People, when they are on LinkedIn, they're either thinking about their work or their career. And so when you give them an offer that offers to augment either of those, they're really eager to participate in it. There are a lot of people on LinkedIn because they're trying to find other people. There are a lot on there because they're job searching. And so just getting in front of the right person is awesome on the network. And I don't find that LinkedIn has as high of click-through rates as either Facebook or Twitter, or certainly not anything in search like AdWords. But it's, they only charge you for when someone clicks. So that's not a big issue. It's getting access to the right people at scale, which LinkedIn definitely has. Awesome.
And then so, as I'm seeing these ads, like I said, like I think I just played with it for like 5 minutes years and years ago. And so, I mean, I'm sure that on LinkedIn you can have like a banner ad and go off site to a landing page like you said, but you also mentioned early on with that case study that like your client had some kind of like like a post on LinkedIn or something. Like, did I hear that right? And can you run an ad on LinkedIn that kind of goes back to your own like company profile or like a blog post or something like that? Can you like have an ad that goes that stays on LinkedIn?
Oh, you totally could. In your landing page, you can put any page, but my recommendation is to get that traffic off of LinkedIn as fast as possible and into an experience that you control. If you have a good reason to have someone on your profile or on your company page or to let's say like a LinkedIn publisher post, that's great. But usually if I'm paying somewhere between $6 and $8 for a click, I want to get their email address as fast as possible. I want them onto my landing page that I can optimize and try to get that the best possible. So it is possible, but I tend to avoid that.
All right, well, good to know that then. And so, I'm really curious about just some of these possibilities that you can do with LinkedIn, and not necessarily just as like shallow as like just you can target all these departments, but I imagine like like different scenarios, like if some kind of like a company was looking to hire like a specific person with a certain like skill set, or a recruiter could just really kind of like blast out some ads. So any like cool stories like that, like any companies who like they use LinkedIn for a certain purpose with their ads that like they wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else?
Yeah, the example that you just used is actually beautiful on LinkedIn. I've talked a lot about the lead generation side where companies are trying to just generate leads from like B2B leads, but you can also reach people, and like I mentioned, where targeting people by their profession is really strong. If you're looking for a marketing manager for your company, for instance, you can target people who just have that title in your area, and then your ads are only being seen by the people who already have the skill, and you'll get resumes for really inexpensive because everyone wants to know what they're worth, and so they'll come to your landing page. My recommendation there is create a landing page experience that makes the job feel special. Don't do the things like must be able to work in dim lighting conditions and lift 20 pounds, just the stupid stuff. Have a landing page that says, here's our team. This is what it's like to work with us. Here's the position, maybe a video or something. That is going to kill it. And you'll end up beating your HR department in cost per application.
Awesome. And so something else this kind of makes me wonder about is it possible with LinkedIn to sort of stalk like one person or a couple of people? Because I remember when Facebook ads came out before they added a bunch of rules, you could run an ad and like have it really 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 targeted, like like a 40-year-old in American Fork, Utah, who likes this one exact interest. So basically, you could run an ad that was like so targeted that you can almost like put a picture of the person you were targeting to kind of like really get them to pay attention. So is there anything like that in LinkedIn where you can just like, if you knew the person you were targeting, could you like run an ad so specific that only that one person sees it?
I used to be able to, but they patched those issues a while back. So I haven't been able to target that specifically. The smallest that you can target on LinkedIn is a group of 1,000. So you can't get straight up creepy on 1,000 people. But they did just release their retargeting, like I mentioned, to those with managed services accounts. And in those, I noticed that you can go down to 300, so it's a little bit kinder on the super narrow targeting. But yeah, unfortunately, you can't get super creepy because that would be awesome.
I mean, for us marketers, right? Maybe not so much for those end users, but I mean, if it's connecting them with what they want, then what's the problem? I guess, right? And so cool stuff. And so I just want to make sure that if people are listening to our call today, if they know if LinkedIn ads are right for them. I know that you mentioned early on that like someone who should be using LinkedIn ads should have like a really high sort of transaction size. So is there like just a quick checklist or a quick criteria for someone to sort of know, okay, LinkedIn ads aren't for me or LinkedIn ads are for me?
Ooh, I actually wrote an article about this on marketingland.com. So I'll send it to you and you can put it in the show notes. Does that work?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, so we'll link to it in the show notes, but like, is there just a really quick, like, just quick set of things for someone to keep in mind?
Yeah, so I'll give you three things. The
Awesome.
first is if you're business to business and you have a high transaction value, call that 15K or north of there, with a specific user, then yay, you're doing great. If you are white collar recruiting almost of any kind, if your ideal if your if your ideal employee is on LinkedIn and you're looking to recruit them, then it's always a no-brainer. And then if you're in higher ed, something like an MBA program trying to look for recruits, you can target by, let's say, someone who is in your area and has a bachelor's degree, but nothing advanced past there. So you can show to them. So those are the three places that work best. The ones that work the worst, like absolutely avoid. If you're B2C, in almost any case, I've made B2C work once and that's about it. If you are asking for a hard sell right there, or asking for someone's credit card, asking them to hop on a phone. All of those are just too high friction. Those are the ones who should definitely avoid the platform.
Awesome. So what you're saying is you can't target everyone making $1 million a year and up and say, here, buy a Rolex.
That's right. I mean, maybe you get a bite here and there, but usually you're going to end up with such a low click-through rate that LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or AdWords, no network's going to keep running an ad that just doesn't get clicked on because they don't make any money, so they'll shut it off.
Awesome, fair enough. But I like those types of businesses or those sort of activities where LinkedIn ads do work, because I imagine that someone, like you said, if they're looking to recruit someone or fill a certain position, they could just say, well, our budget is like a couple $1,000, make an ad, have some of these expensive clicks, but every single click would be super valuable, and then they can kind of like narrow that down. And so, when you're working with these companies to set up LinkedIn ads, have you been seeing like any sort of like universal mistake that maybe you made early on, or that you see other people running ads making with LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, I've made so many mistakes. Where do I start? I think the biggest one is most people who came from the world of search marketing, where you're bidding on keywords, you used to name your audiences after the keywords, and then when they come over to social, they might be maybe a little bit maybe they have the propensity to start naming their campaigns and their ad sets and all that after the keywords that they. Sorry, this is sounding really scattered. They're naming it after keywords, but the keywords that they generally think of are like, what's our content? And so you end up with these audiences that are called things like White Paper One or 2017 webinar. And those they tell you nothing. And so what I would recommend is any type of social advertising, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, go in and name your campaigns after the audience that you have inside of them. So, for instance, if you're looking at HR directors of companies with more than 500 employees in the United States, name it that, like a little codified version of it, director seniority, VPs, whatever, at companies 500 plus. That kind of thing will when you start looking down your account list and comparing your statistics of each of like the performance back and forth, you'll find out that some of them are performing really well, some aren't, and it's really easy to compare. If you're just calling it like White Paper One, and then as soon as your white paper's dead, you move on and create a new one, you won't have that the long record to compare against.
Awesome, makes a lot of sense. So our tendency from Facebook and AdWords is to sort of name that audience after the offer, but on LinkedIn it sounds like it's sort of the opposite, where you name it after those types of people, those like job titles or whatever that you're targeting.
Yeah, and then you end up with these campaigns that are evergreen, that when you're done with a piece of content, you pause those ads and launch new ones, and then you get to share the credibility that campaign's built up and keep running off of it and get costs really low. If you're always starting brand new campaigns from scratch, the platform's going to have to figure out, take a chance on you, and they're going to charge you more for the first little bit.
Awesome, pretty good idea there, and pretty good strategy. And so this whole thing with LinkedIn ads, it sounds like it's definitely a very specialized kind of thing. Definitely a different beast from some of the sort of pay-per-click bidding on keywords that we might be used to. And so I'm really curious about the service you provide and like B2Linked and all that kind of stuff. So if someone has been listening through our conversation here today about LinkedIn ads and they want to know about you and your company and what you do, where should they go?
Sure. So go to b2linked.com. That's the letter B, the number 2, and then the word linked.com. We offer two services, basically. The first is going to be account management, where you say, AJ, we want you to run the account for us. The second option is just like an hourly consulting or training, where you say, hey, we want to build this competency internally in the company. We want to be able to run it ourselves. Can you help us get started? And so that's just an hourly. Either of those services, if you're interested, just fill out the contact form. I'm going to be the one who replies to that. So you're not going to get like a hard sales pitch or get put into a drip kind of offer system. It's just I'm going to respond.
Awesome, and you won't get retargeted on LinkedIn except for maybe if that technology is rolled out to the rest of us, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Well, cool. So everyone listening should go right now to b2linked.com and fill out that form and let AJ know what you're up to and what your needs are, whether you want that account management or you just want some hourly consulting to make your LinkedIn ads work for you and work better. So I want to thank you so much, AJ, for coming on and telling us about this weird but cool and wild world of LinkedIn ads and sharing all that cool stuff you had to share with us.
I'm so happy to share. Thanks so much for inviting me, Robert.
Check out the latest episodes of our podcast on the web at robertplank.com and subscribe to us on iTunes at robertplank.com/iTunes.